you know, there might be an occasion where this thing winds up over the carriage, so I should make sure my drawer sits above that point. That puts me at about 5 3/4. I want to give myself any kind of a space here because I'm going to wind up using, I think, lock nuts above. I think I'm going to be fine at about 5.5 inches or so on my drawer height. I don't even know what this wood is. I picked up this scrap lumber at a local lumber yard that's kind of, sort of has the plies of Baltic birch, but it's not Baltic birch. It's got a bit more voids in it, and it does have a painted finish. It's not plastic, it's not a veneer, it's just a paint. I got it inexpensively enough that I'm using it for some jigs and fixtures here around the shop. Currently what I'm doing is just cobbling together some pieces of my drawer box. I decided what size I want to make the height of these, just call it 5 inches tall. And I'm going to use some side mount ball bearing drawer slides to mount these inside of the ChopSmith. Now I had a bunch of choices for that, and let me show you my thinking. Now, one of the least expensive options, and really not a bad choice at all, is to use what are referred to as bottom mount drawer slides. So these are epoxy coated drawer slides, very inexpensive. They're only a few dollars a piece. You buy these in pairs, and those pairs are 4 pieces. You have a left and a right cabinet member and a left and a right drawer member. Now, what I like about these things is they're kind of bulletproof. So in a shop environment where you've got dust and things, it's really hard to damage these at all. Just like a typical side mount drawer slide, they take up a 1/2 inch on either side. So you measure your opening, you subtract an inch, and that is the width of your drawer box. The downside of these slides is they're only partial extension. They only go out about 3/4 of their length. So a portion of your drawer box is going to remain in the cabinet. Because I have that overhang on the front of the ChopSmith, I figure that's probably not the best choice for this. I'm already losing a little bit of my access, but not a bad slide, and we'll use slides like this in a later project. So these slides are also a 1/2 inch thick. So same as the bottom mount slides, we're going to build our drawer box 1 inch narrower than our opening. Now, what's interesting about these slides, they are referred to as telescopic slides. There are 3 members: a cabinet member, an intermediate member, and a drawer member. Cabinet member mounts to the cabinet. The drawer member mounts to the drawer box. And the intermediate member is the thing that helps it extend beyond the drawer box's full depth. These actually have an inch of over travel. So this should get me very close to clearing that front lip on the ChopSmith. Now you can see on this side, we have these little areas right here. And by the way, these are a knockoff of a famous American brand called Accuride. And they're relatively faithful. I still prefer the Accuride ones, and especially when I paid retail for these Chinese slides, I could have bought the Accuride ones at wholesale, just not on a Sunday afternoon, unfortunately. But anyway, Accuride designed these to have these cutouts that they refer to as breather tabs. Maybe you can see it better over my, no, you can't see it there either. Um, and when we mount these inside of our cabinet, if we mount them from that hole right there, in the end of the breather tab, it allows us to have a slightly undersized drawer box or a slightly oversized opening. It allows us to just expand a little bit. What you can't do is have undersized openings and oversized drawer boxes. That will put these in a bind. So you actually end up, to get these to perform best, you want to make your drawer boxes ever so slightly narrower than the 1 inch off of the opening width. That's what I'm going to do. So let me just walk you through my thinking here. I'm going to wind up removing this 3/4 inch cleat and replacing it with a cleat made of a 2x4. So I'm going to put this back here just to double check my thinking. You can see with the 16-inch side of my drawer box in place, I'm just barely extending beyond the front of this. So for sure, once this is gone, once that piece of 2x4 cleating is flush with the back, I'll have no problem with this uh, being too large in the drawer box. If I put these two side members here, my front and my back pieces will always be mounted within my drawer sides. So I also need to have a 1/2 inch on either side for the drawer slide. So we'll slide a drawer slide in over there. We'll slide a drawer slide in over here. And you can see that I'll be able to build a drawer box here. If I push everything over to one side and then separate them, you can see I've got about 1/8 of an inch gap. That means once this is assembled, I'll have about a 32nd of an inch play on either side that I can accommodate with those breathing tabs on the drawer slide. It looks like everything is going to fit just right here. So now to do some pocket screws. The side that I drill my pocket holes is going to be completely hidden. So I'm going to drill my holes from that face, and I'm just going to flush this up on the side, drill a couple holes. With this particular jig, if you don't want that to jump back quite so far, you can actually lock it in place, and then when you release it, it only releases enough to get your stock out of there, which is kind of slick. You can see not quite dead center on that middle one. Doesn't matter. No one is ever going to see this tear out. It doesn't matter though. So I'm going to assemble these without glue because I have something I need to do. I'll have to take these apart before I'm all done. But basically what we do is align this with the outside edge and drive our screws in. Now you might be asking yourself, Self, where's the groove for the drawer bottom? Don't worry about it. Bottom, bottom, the bottoms together. Again from the inside. And again, I have the play I expected. So this is my plan for my drawer bottom. I'm using just simply some 1/8 inch masonite or hardboard. I've made it just ever so slightly undersized, and then that'll be used, glued and screwed directly to the bottom of the drawer box. So I will lose no capacity whatsoever inside the box, not having to cut grooves. Now here's where those epoxy side mount or undermount slides do really shine, because one of the things you can do with these is you mount them like so, and you can run some screws directly through the bottom into the sides, as well as from the side to hold them in place. And that will lock your bottom right onto the side of your drawer box. Nothing really complicated or scientific here. I'm going to come down the side of my drawer slides 2 inches, and I'm going to make a mark. And that's where I'm going to mount the drawer members of my slide. I want to have some clearance here on the top. And how much clearance? Well, I want to make sure I clear the lock nuts that I'm eventually going to be using to lock this in place. Of course, those lock nuts are sitting up on top of these T-nuts. But this will give me a rough idea of how far down on the sides I want to mount my cabinet member. So if I were to measure down 2 inches here and put that on top of that lock nut, that would put my cabinet members at about the right height. But let's just go ahead and go to 2.5 inches here. This part happens to be almost exactly 2.5 inches. Hold that there, about 1/8 of an inch down. 2.5. Again, being incredibly scientific about this, holding it about 1/8 of an inch away, exactly right around 1/8 of an inch. That's where my cabinet member is going to go. With these slides, we disconnect the drawer member from the cabinet member by extending them and then pushing down on this little tab or lifting up on it, depends upon, there we go. We'll lift up. That'll take care of that one. And you can see which way these slides are coming out of the member. So that's going to install right on our pencil line. Whenever I'm given the opportunity to run a screw into either a round hole or a slot, I always select the slot because that gives me the possibility of some alignment. But again, you'll notice those breathing tabs I mentioned have a slot in the middle and a hole on the very end. So really, they intend for us to put it right there into that hole. The screws that are provided with this are pan head screws. And the advantage of a pan head in this application is it prevents these two members, the pan head screws passing each other, aren't going to hit one another. So I think for this one, I'm going to go ahead and use a VIX bit to pre-drill a couple holes. I'm pretty sure we've talked about these in the past. The original brand that manufactured these was a company called VIX. I have some VIX bits around as well. These were made by Snappy. I like the version from Snappy because it has a hex drive. All the VIX bit brand that I have a round shank on them. So I can put this into all kinds of tools that I have that have the 1/4 inch hex shank. But this is a self-centering drill bit that's going to center on the hole in the hardware. And as I plunge in, it'll allow me to drill the hole dead center on the hole that's guiding it. So no matter what I do, I'm going to be casting a shadow here, so sorry about that. We want these to be, 1/8 of an inch or so inset from the front. And again, I want to catch that outermost hole. Just do one. Get a screw mounted. That's the one right there. My body was not made to work in miniature places. All right. And let's get these drawer members attached. I made some notations to myself about what was bottom. What is the back or the front really doesn't matter to me, at least not yet. It's about to matter. But we'll go ahead and we'll call this the front. And we're going to take this member, and it goes typically flush or very close to flush from the front. Again, we can choose whichever hole location we want to use. The slots would give us some alignment if we were building some fine furniture and we're concerned about that. Or we can just shoot for the center of the round hole, the fixing screw hole. Yeah, I think I'm going to just go ahead and do that. Now flip it over. Now I'm resting this on that slide member, so it's going to get a little bit wiggly wobbly here. I'm not careful. It's also a great place for some double-sided tape. You can tape these in place and then not have to worry about them shifting around. Here's where we're taking advantage of those breathing tabs that are on the cabinet members. Not even engaging those. There we go. Those can be removed at any time by just, again, pushing on the little lever here. And, well, on this side, I'm lifting. On this side, I'm pushing down. And I can disconnect those members. Now, I want to do something else. I want to put a face on this because that's not very pretty. And I also want to use a latch. I have purchased this little latch right here that's going to allow the drawer to lock in place once I close it without ever having to think about locking it. And then will release when I lift on this lever. So I'm going to put a face on this. Now's the time to do it. And this is going to have to be mounted through that face. And I'm going to have a recess behind it to accommodate this lock. There's woeful instructions with these, but it looks to me like this needs to be mounted a little bit more than a ½ inch down from this top edge right here. So that means, let's see, when that's installed, golly, it's weird to have to think all this through like this. It's going to be like that. So I've got to bore all the way through this piece to make room for this piece, and that's going to be a larger diameter hole than this body. Interesting. So I got to have a hole big enough for this to pass through this piece, and it clamps against this piece. All right. Now you know why I said I got to take all this apart again. So the largest Forstner bit I have here is not going to be large enough for this housing to slide through. This housing needs to go past this piece. So we'll disconnect these two parts from each other, and I'll cut that out with a saw. But just to make this easy and to make sure I am lined up perfectly with the piece below, I'll switch this out to 2 inches. I'll drill all the way through with a 2-inch bit, and then I just have to come along with a saw and cut around this piece on this portion. I do need to put a piece of scrap wood underneath this because I'm going to be going all the way through both of these pieces. Go. Okay, now we need to come in and just cut that out. All right, so this hardware has to be fed through this hole. Like that. And we've got this piece fits over the back and is screwed in place. So this hardware came as a 2-pack, came with the fixing screws as well as the screws to mount the stop or the latch that's going to be inside the cabinet opening. And we just need to screw this onto that. The plastic is soft enough that it's tapping just fine. That's going to fit. Now it needs to be able to slide right underneath that tab in order for it to self-lock. And it does. And let's highlight where those screws will need to go. Something like that. So we can go ahead, use the Vicks bit. All right, I believe we have it. Let's double check this. A little bit of gravity applied in the correct direction. Nice. Got my bottom cut just slightly undersized, so I can go up against the back of the front here, and we'll just run a row of staples along the back. Now at this point, I can square this box. The moment I add another staple here or anywhere along here, it's going to lock this in square. So let's just check and see if anything needs to be done. Yep, I'll pull this in flush on this side. And with that, we are square, or as square as it can be. Yeah, we're good. should be all she wrote. Now, this style of slide, they always slide in easier if you pull the intermediate members out. And then basically we're just going to align the drawer member with the intermediate member and then close the drawer till they catch. Now, if you're curious exactly how much we've gained from this drawer, I want you to think about this. I've got right here a new 80 tooth replacement blade. I want to put a nicer cross-cutting blade on this. It came with a 40. It's not bad. I'll keep it around in case I need to do some rough cutting. But this blade right here fits with tons of spare room in the drawer box. I could put in a square, I could drop in some tape measures, things like that. Now keep in mind, anything you put in here is more weight that you're going to have to lift, and obviously more weight that your cleat is going to have to support on your wall. So don't go too crazy. All right, I look forward to your questions, comments, and cheap shots, and make it a great day. So the only other thing I was thinking of doing was replacing that cleat on the back with a 2x4 and on the wall with probably a 2x6 cut at a 45-degree angle, but you don't need to see that. Oh my gosh, Scott.